And we're back once again at chapter 8, verse 56 of the book of 1 Kings. Blessed be the Lord who has given rest unto his people Israel according to all that he promised. There has not failed one word of all the good promise which he promised by the hand of Moses his servant. Notes. Now this is talking about Leviticus chapter 26 verses 3 through 13, Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 1 all the way up to 14, and in Joshua chapter 21 verse 44. And those promises are still in effect. Verse 57. The Lord our God be with us, as he was with our fathers. Let him not leave us nor forsake us, that he may incline our hearts unto him, to walk in all his ways, and to keep his commandments, and his statutes, and his judgments, and which he commanded our fathers. Notes. You ought to circle that, because these are the conditions on which God's blessings were actually guaranteed. Just listen to him. Verse 59. And let these my words wherewith I have made supplication before the Lord be near unto the Lord our God day and night, that he maintain the cause of his servant, and the cause of his people Israel at all times, as the matter shall require. That all the people of the earth may know that the Lord is God, and that there is none else. Let your heart therefore be perfect with the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes, and to keep his commandments, as at this day. Notes. The thoughts of Solomon now go not only to Israel, but to the entirety of the world. The house is now dedicated, and he prays that the Gentiles will come to their senses. You can see something very similar to that in Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2 through 3. And when it's talking about the hearts, it's talking about the hearts of the people of Israel. But the Gentiles are also included in that because of their becoming proselytes. Okay, verse 62. And the king and all Israel with him offered sacrifice before the Lord. Notes. Now, these sacrifices, they were a proclamation of the fact that Israel's safety, protection, blessing, and prosperity depended solely upon the shed blood of the Lamb. And of course, I've said it 1,000 times, I'll say it again, these sacrifices represented Christ. You know, some people may get disgusted at the idea of cutting an animal up into pieces and shedding blood all over the place. Well, the sacrifices were not meant to be a pleasant experience. They were meant to invoke some kind of disgusted feeling within your body. It's God's way of letting you know that your sin is what causes this to have to go on. When we sin, we actually have the reason. Whenever we sin, we are actually the reason why Christ had to go to the cross, of which, of course, these sacrifices were a type. Okay, now what verse was I on? Verse 63. And Solomon offered a sacrifice of peace offerings, which he offered unto the Lord 22,000 oxen, and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. Notes. Now the tremendous number of sacrifices offered, they typify the great sacrifice of Christ. But yet, even though all these sheep and oxen were offered, they were still insufficient to actually take away sin. They only covered sin until Christ would come. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 4. And whenever he died on the cross, he would ultimately take away all sin. John chapter 1, verse 29, if I'm not mistaken. At least all sin that is repented of. The other sins, well, they're going to be judged. And they're going to be eradicated that way. You don't want to be judged, considering how hot it will get. Verse 64. The same day did the king hallow the middle of the court that was before the house of the Lord. For there he offered burnt offerings and meat offerings, and the fat of the peace offerings, because the brazen altar that was before the Lord was too little to receive the burnt offerings and meat offerings and the fat of the peace offerings. Notes. In fact, these altars, the great altar was 30 feet wide and 30 feet long, exactly the same size as the Holy of Holies, and this signifies that his answer to sin, which is the cross, is as great as his throne, signified by the Holy of Holies. But yet even the great altar was too small to receive all the offerings, so the entirety of the court was used at least for the slaughter. And no doubt this lasted for several days, maybe even a few weeks. Verse 65. And at that time Solomon held a feast, and all Israel with him, a great congregation, from the entering in of Hamath unto the river of Egypt before the Lord our God, 7 days and let me read that again. Before the Lord our God, 7 days and 7 days, even 14 days. A little bit confusing there. Notes. Now all the people were required to eat their portions of the peace offerings, which signified that peace with God had been restored now that the proper burnt offerings had been sacrificed. The burnt offerings signified that the Lord would give His all, His perfection, to the people. The sin and trespass offerings signified that the people would give their sin and trespass to the Lord Himself. Verse 66. On the 8th day He sent the people away, and they blessed the king and went unto their tents joyful and glad of heart for all the goodness that the Lord had done for David His servant and for Israel His people. Notes. On the 8th day of the second feast, which together with the first feast, well, this totaled 14 days. And this typifies the coming kingdom age where Christ will personally reign supreme from Jerusalem and do so over the entirety of the world. And guess what that's going to bring? Then, and only then, will there ever be true joy and gladness of heart for all the people. I mean, no wonder these Israelites were so happy. Jeremiah chapters 30 through 31, Zechariah chapter 12, verse 4 through 14, and chapters 13 through 14. I totally recommend you read the entire book of Zechariah, though, because it deals a lot with this entire subject right here of Christ coming back and what the end results of that are going to be. Israel will weep as the only son. I can't think of the verse exactly, but we'll go ahead and continue with chapter 9. I'm trying to think of that verse, but anyways, we'll continue. And it came to pass, when Solomon had finished the building of the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all Solomon's desire which he was pleased to do, that the Lord appeared to Solomon the second time, as He had appeared unto him at Gibeon. Notes. Now this would be about 19 to 20 some odd years after the first appearance in verse 10. And this time He did it in a dream in chapter 3, verse 5 of this book. And the Lord said unto him, I have heard your prayer and your supplication that you have made before me. I have hallowed this house which you have built, to put my name there forever. And my eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. Notes. In 2 Chronicles chapter 7 verse 12 we read, And have chosen this place to myself for a house of sacrifice. And this proclaims the fact that the cross was the foundation of Israel's blessings and prosperity, which would be obvious. Verse 4. And if you will walk before me as David your father walked, in integrity of heart and in uprightness, and to do according to all that I have commanded you, and will keep my statutes and my judgments, then I will establish the throne of your kingdom upon Israel forever, as I promised to David your father, saying, There shall not fail you a man upon the throne of Israel. Notes. I think it's kind of funny that David was ever used as the example. Self-righteousness would have great difficulty in accepting a person such as David, especially considering his great failures. However, only Pharisees or self-righteousness would have such difficulty. Those who truly know themselves and truly know God and His grace have no difficulty whatsoever. Now, the committal of Solomon and Israel was conditional upon obedience as well, I might point out. This means that the path of safety pointed out by God to Solomon was strictly obedience and attachment to the Word of God. And we must pick up in chapter 9, verse 6 of 1 Kings. Thank you, and God bless. Hopefully my memory will return to me.